The rain was lashing against the windows. The wind was howling over the roof, threatening to rip it off. But the bucket of blood had stood on that site for hundreds of years and was determined to be there for hundreds more. The candles gave a welcoming glow for travelers on nights such as this. The local fishermen met in this pub to drink and laugh after a hard day's, weeks or even months worth of work out at sea. In the corner of this pub is where our tale begins. Sat at his favorite table was a man known to everyone in the town simply as Bosun. He would tell visitors and the townsfolk all the ghost stories that were passed down the generations from his father and his father before him and so on. He had many stories, but the most infamous one was the tragic tale of John Martin. He was chained up to the harbour wall by a rival fisherman after John started fishing in the same waters. He drowned when the tide came in, and the townsfolk found him the next morning. He was buried in the cemetery with all the other fishermen. It has been said that if you walk around his grave 3 times, then you were to stand on top, his ghost will appear before your very eyes and you would know it was him from the chains wrapped around his wrists and neck. Bosun had just finished telling this story to his friends when Jane Daniels, who was the woman behind the bar, burst into laughter. She apologized and said that she had heard that one before, and it was such a ridiculous superstitious story and she didn't believe a word of it. Well, Bosun did not appreciate his words being laughed at like that, but more importantly, they were the words of his father. So there and then, he bet her half a crown to go up to the cemetery. He bet her to walk around the grave of John Martin 3 times. He bet her to stand right on top. To make sure she had done it, he told her to take his knife and stick it into the grave. To show that she had indeed done it, he would retrieve the knife the following morning and come to pay her the bet money. For a few moments she hesitated. It was just a silly old superstition, wasn't it? There was nothing to be frightened of, was there? She now didn't want to look like a coward in front of her friends, so she accepted the challenge. She took the knife, she picked up her coat, and started the walk up the old coffin road towards the cemetery. It was a 5-minute walk up that old hill. With each step she could feel her heart sink more and more, like a ship slipping under the icy waves. From the top of that hill, Jane could see right down into the town. The lights in the windows were a gentle glow flickering through the thick blanket of sea mist that was rolling in. She was now stood at the gates to the cemetery. For a moment she thought to herself, why was she doing this? There is still time to go back and apologize. No. Now she had to do it and show them it was all a silly story. Taking a deep breath, she placed her shaking hand on the rusted gate, and it opened with a screech. Walking down the hill, Jane could feel the night air getting colder. Her oil lamp flickered in the wind. There it was, the grave of John Martin. She must get it over and done with quickly. Without hesitation she put down her lamp and began to walk around the grave. With each step, her heart was beating faster and faster. Her breath was getting heavier. 1 circle down. The wind was getting stronger. 2 circles down. Now the rain began to fall harder. 3rd circle, done. Suddenly everything stopped. No rain. No wind. Just the sea fog rolling in off the coast. Terrified now, she stood on the grave and stabbed the knife down deep into the ground. She had done it. She had done it. The relief swept over her. She turned to leave, but could not move. The panic set in again. She struggled, but something was holding her there. The wind and rain started again more heavily, now making it impossible to see 3 meters in front of you. She screamed at the top of her voice for help, but no one would hear over the howling wind and lashing rain. Whatever got her was keeping her there with a strong grip. Her screams filled the night air. Then turned to silence. The next morning, Bosun and his crew set off up the hill to see if Jane had completed the bet. They arrived at the gate to find it open, so someone had entered last night. They marched down to the grave of John Martin to find a horrible sight. There lying on the grave was Jane's body, cold, wet, and white with fear. On closer inspection they found she had stabbed the knife into her dress. That was the reason she could not move. But what had killed her? The post-mortem showed nothing out of the ordinary, so it was written. Cause of death unknown, because there is no technical term for scared to death. The one thing they couldn't ever explain was the black and blue bruises on her neck, in the pattern of chains. Bosun has a new ghost story to tell now, one that is simply a great tale. Thank you for listening to this spooky story. My name has been Crazy Chris. Good night out there. Whatever you are.
Original recipe.